President-elect Barack Obama is warning of a dire economic situation and how much worse it could get if there is not bipartisan support and quickly for his stimulus plan. But will his proposals work? Joining me now from Denver is nationally syndicated columnist David Sirota. He's also the author of the book, The Uprising. David, you wrote a column yesterday, fascinating one, in the immediate aftermath of Obama's speech called The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly of the Plan. Let's walk through it. What's the good first?
The good is that Obama seems to understand at least the size and scope of the problem and is proposing a robust package of public spending. And we know that public spending is probably the most efficient way to stimulate the economy.
Some people, though, are saying that there isn't enough public spending in this.
Well, it gets to the bad. The bad part of this is that he's also including a lot of tax cuts, and that he seems to be paying for those tax cuts with that public spending. In other words, he's taking the money that could be going to public spending and putting it into a lot of tax cuts that a lot of people don't think are going to work.
Oh, so why do you say the tax cuts are bad? Because if you look at the other side of the political fence, over on the Republican side, they believe that the tax cuts are good and that there probably needs to be more of them.
Well, because the data tells us that the best way, the quickest way, the most efficient way to stimulate the economy is through public spending. Mark Zandi of Economy.com, one of John McCain's advisors, has said that you get about $1.58 GDP benefit with public spending. You only get about $1.23 or $1.24 when you put that money into tax cuts. So if we want to stimulate the economy in a short-term, quick kind of way, the best way that we know how to do that is through public infrastructure spending, unemployment insurance, food stamps.
Well, we'll get to the ugly in just a second, David, but do you have enough information about what's in this plan to be able to say whether or not it would work?
Not yet, and that's a good point. I mean, we don't know what the final size of this package is going to be. We don't know what percentage is going to be spending, what precise percentage is going to be tax cuts. So it's still a negotiation in process. That's absolutely true.
All right, so give us the ugly of all of this.
Well, the ugly was that Obama seemed to mention that he wants to connect deficit reduction to entitlement, quote-unquote, entitlement reform. Now, entitlement reform refers to Social Security and Medicare. Now, when you tie deficit reduction to entitlement, quote-unquote, reform, it usually has meant in the past efforts to try to cut those programs. Now, that's a bad idea in a bad economy. Medicare and Social Security are very, very stimulative to the economy. You do not want to cut those programs.
Yeah, and there was one other aspect to all of this that John Dickerson from Slate magazine picked up when he noticed how this was being sold. And he writes, quote, "For a president who has repeatedly promised an entirely new way of doing business in Washington, Obama's address had a deep familiarity. Doom was its central and recurring message. Unless the federal government acts quickly and boldly and expensively, the roof is going to cave in." It's almost like he's using the tactics of the Bush administration as it sold security to try to sell this economic recovery package.
I think there's something to that, but I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I mean, every crisis is an opportunity, and I think that this economic crisis is an opportunity to reassert the role of the government as a force for good in the economy on behalf of the middle class. We haven't had that in the last 30, 35 years. And so I do think that that's a paradigm shift, at least from the last a couple of decades.
David Sirota in Denver this morning. It's good to see you, David. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me, John.